We are in for a treat on this episode, Mr. Crawford, and all you listeners out there. We have an amazing guest on today. He's a 40 under 40 Phoenix Business Journal guy. He's doing some amazing stuff in the community, an amazing person we know, part of our Junto Brotherhood. He's one of our many members that we have in that group, and I can't be more excited to dive into the story of Sentari Minor. Thank you so much for jumping on the pod today, the SuccessFlow podcast. Tell us what's going on, man. How's things in your world?
Oh, that's a big question, small question all at the same time.
I know, it's a way to kick it off. We just jump right in around here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. What's happening right in this moment? Let's see. On the business front, we're a rapidly growing company, so a lot of my time is just being spent with our executive team and kind of coaching on kind of how do we all level up our own teams and the company at large, and that's a fun thing. On the personal side, let's see. I'm really been into Barry's Boot Camp lately.
What is that? What is Barry's Boot Camp?
It's a great high intensity workout class that I've done from over the course of a couple of years every time I visit Chicago, and they finally opened one up in Scottsdale 2 or 3 months ago. So I got a membership, and now I do it once or twice a week in addition to my other workouts, and it kicks my ass, but I love it. I do love it.
That's awesome.
I saw one of your posts there when you were in Chicago with that group. You had the biggest smile on your face.
I love it. It's so good.
Well, dude, you're the chief of staff of Evolved MD, which we'll get into later on the pod, but we like to start a little bit on the personal side. You are a workout nut athlete, if you will. I follow you on Instagram, and I heart all of your stories because I aspire to be you. You're a beast. That's an understatement. So you to find a new workout and find that challenging, that means I would pretty much just die afterwards. I wouldn't even survive the workout.
It's hard.
What got you into that, man? Have you always been health conscious? Have you always been into building muscle and strength training?
This is I don't tell this story often, but I'll tell it to you guys and your listeners. So I was actually kind of a fairly chubby kid. And then going into high school, I was like, I gotta stop this. And so I got this book when I was 13, which my parents were so annoyed that they even sold me this book. It was from Men's Health. It was called Banish Your Belly. And it was really, the point of the book was portion control and workout. Being in shape is not that hard. Just don't eat a bunch, and if you do, small portions, and then work out. So probably around 13 or 14, I got really into fitness, and that carried on into college. And in college, I joined. I became a college cheerleader, which was not on my radar. But I went to a school in the Midwest where I didn't know anyone, and I was the only kid from Arizona. And so I was at the gym one day, and this group of people were like, "Hey, do you want to cheer?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll try it." And I loved it. So I then learned how do you lift for your body for that? And since then, I've always just been a big workout fiend. I've probably since 14 or 15, I've worked out 4 or 5 days a week. The only times I would not do that is if I'm sick. But yeah, it's always been part of my ethos. I think of the one thing that I have to do almost every day to make sure I'm in a good headspace is worked out. So it's something that'll always be part of my life, and it's something that I've had to modify over the last 10 years for sure. My body just can't do what my body did when it was 25 years old. So I had to modify my workouts, not be as intense. Also learn to listen to my body. It's hey, you actually do need another day off. Before I would just fight through, and that's how you get terrible injuries. And so now I'm I'm just going to listen to my body and what that looks like. But yeah, fitness is definitely one of the top things in my life.
Was that college, high school, or both on the cheerleading?
Just college, yeah.
Just college. Oh, wow.
I didn't do any of that in high school, but then I kind of learned in college, and all of my best friends are from the squad. But it was something I was I'll figure it out. And it's something that's it's easy to learn, but it's kind of hard to do, and it's hard on your body. It's definitely harder on your body. I think.
Throwing humans up in the air is
throwing humans up in the air is kind of hard.
It's a little mentally draining too. I can imagine. But at high school, the cheerleaders, the men cheerleaders that would be in the weight room exact same time as the football players, and they were out lifting many, a large portion of the football team, and very specific workouts and regimens. Because for my small town, this was their ticket out because of the scholarships involved, and they were so disciplined. They did not miss any workouts. I did not know that about you. So.
Yeah, it was. I mean, a lot of our a lot of the guys that ended up joining the squad were former football players that like got to college and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I still want to keep like this tone in body. So they joined the squad, which is great.
So that 4 years, how long did you do that for?
For all 4 years.
Yeah, all 4 years. Yeah. Okay. So obviously that's a unique story, right? We don't hear a lot about a lot of male cheerleaders in college. What was that experience like, man? Was it cool? Did you really have a good time? You obviously enjoyed it?
It was great. I mean, it was a built-in group of like any team, built-in group of friends, right? People that again, I'm still very close to today. You learn a lot about just like teamwork in a more, I don't know, intimate's not the word, but and probably intimate's the best way. It's like you're holding up another human and that person's relying on you to not just drop them. And then if you have like a larger group stunts, you are assuming and just hoping in the partnership and trust you have in people that like everyone knows their shit so that no one's going to fall. So that was a lot, but it was great. Like you push your body a lot. There's a lot more training than you would think. It was great. It was also just a good way to like show school pride, and I loved it. It's something that I look back on fondly, and it was definitely fun. I think the funny part now is that we're all much older, and many of the folks on the squad now have kids, and like sometimes we'll get together for like a wedding or something and like try to bring it back. And it's like
do some of the moves.
Right after college, it was great. We were good. And then like turned 30, we're like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this anymore. And then now we just don't.
Yeah. The full pyramid after a few cocktails could be
exactly.
risky.
What do you call it? The scorpion move when you pull your leg over when you're a flyer or something. My sister was a cheerleader, and I remember growing up and her telling me all about those aren't flying anymore in your mid 30s.
No, I mean, actually at one person's wedding, we did pull up a couple of stunts that was probably like probably 10 years ago. Yeah. And we were still like kind of okay, but since then it's like, this is actually not dangerous, guys.
Oh, that's funny.
Someone's gonna get hurt.
Well, that's a really good point though. You bring up, like, we talk a lot about sports and athletics and how it relates into business and life and the team environment and the mindset you have to have and all that. We do correlate that a lot, but to your point, the cheerleading aspect, it's a totally different animal because you do have so many that are relying on, like, if you screw up or you're not locked in, they could break their bones or fall or whatever, right? Like they're really just hoping or knowing and expecting and have that ultimate trust that you're going to be there for them. Whereas in most other sports, it's like you just make the play or not, or you lose the game or whatever. But like without you, it cannot be accomplished.
I think also one of the things that was kind of interesting was, you're in college, you like to party, like everyone has fun, but it's actually dangerous if like someone comes to a game or to do any competition hungover or like a little bit off. Yeah. And so we had to be thoughtful about like, hey, we can't have you today because you're going to be off and someone's going to get hurt. And so that was like top of mind. Like you don't think about that when someone's playing with basketball or something else. Totally. It's like, well, they don't make the shot. But someone could slip and hurt. And so we always had to be very vigilant on like, you got to sit this one out because it's just actually not safe for you to do this.
I'm fast forwarding to modern day. I find it very interesting. We've gotten to get to know each other and the three of us over the last couple of years a lot better as you started as an external educator for Gento, that everyone got so much value out of. It was quite impactful. But as I've gotten to know you, I know that a lot of your fantastic writing, you get tied to strategy a lot. Strategy is a craft that if you had to umbrella it, what you would fall under right now. But the more I've gotten to know you, I think of you as like this business Swiss Army knife. Like you really are. And that makes sense from a strategy perspective. As I was prepping for this conversation, I was thinking, well, that makes total sense. How are you going to be a strategist if you don't know a little bit to be dangerous around across all areas of the enterprise? But the other piece is your creative writing and your ability to communicate. And I think you would make an unbelievable investigative journalist, because from a sales perspective, you're one of the best people I've ever met at third, fourth, fifth layer questions. And I was just curious how the journey leading to strategy, what was kind of the background as you started putting the pieces together, started building the skill set? What did that journey look like?
Yeah, so I think, a couple of things. I studied creative writing in undergrad, so I went to school for English. And so there was always going to be something in my career where I was writing, right? I don't think I wanted writing. Well, I know I didn't want writing to be like the whole gig, but I wanted to be part of the gig. So throughout my career, I've always been in some, at least comms has rolled up to me or has been part of like part of my role. The strategy piece came from, to your point about just being in different roles and understanding like how it should all be coming together. So, I mean, in my career, I've done major gifts fundraising. I've led marketing teams. I've led executive teams. And really the through line has been like, how do you ask the right questions to get people to the right outcome? And so I'm a naturally curious and inquisitive person. I love, as you know, Phil, just asking the right questions. And I think a good strategist does all of those things. So for me, when I came over to EvolvedMD, my CEO, our co-founder, Eric, was like, hey, I need someone to build out our first strategic plan, right? So I joined the company when it was about 3 years old. Yeah, I joined the company when it was about 3 years old. And like, then I got to sit around with I think I was employee 9 or 10. So sit around with everyone else on the team and just kind of ask questions of like, what's your experience like? What's your experience been like here? What are the big goals that you see for the organization? What are the challenges the organization's seeing and why? And then from that, I can build out, all right, if this is where we're trying to get to and where we're trying to be, then we have to put these things in place. And so since then, I've built out our annual strategic plan every year, figured out what are the alignments that's needed from the executive team and their respective departments. And then I get to kind of air traffic control all of that for the company, which is something I love. And I think for me, my personality, I do not like just one particular thing. So that like Swiss Army knife is the perfect thing for me. Like I could never be like fully comms or fully finance or fully anything.
You get the macro.
I get to do all of those things.
You can take the zoom out vision and dive in where you need to, dive out and really have an impact there.
Yeah, you do a great job. When you came in, our first Junto meeting, and then ended up joining our group, and we had I just remember Summit, we broke out into small groups and whatever. You're like, I'll take notes or bullets or whatever. It was like just knocked it all out. Super listener, like it's the superpower, man. Like you just listened to everybody, took the amazing notes, and then you like within the hour, everyone got a whole rundown of what we just talked about, and it's super impactful. I can only imagine the types of stuff that you do over at EvolvedMD. And I got a chance to meet your crew. About a little over a year ago,
good.
I came in and I met your CEO and your whole team. And dude, it's an amazing leadership team. And I know you're a big part of that, but it's a really great group. So kind of talk about a little bit what you guys do, because it's super important and something that a lot of people need. And the way you guys approach mental health and behavioral health and things like that with your primary care physician is super unique. And you're going to end up disrupting the industry. You already are. So kind of let some people know about what EvolvedMD is about and the impact that you're making.
Yeah, so EvolvedMD, we integrate behavioral health into primary care. So we put a master's level clinician right where you see your doc, your pediatrician, your gynecologist. And so those, your PCP and the therapist that we employ kind of collaborate on your care. The model, we believe, and we have the data and outcomes to show, really increases access because you will go to your doctor's office for care. It's kind of hard when there's an extra layer of like, hey, Steven, go see this therapist. They're across town. It's, hey, Steven, go see this therapist. They're in the next room. So increases access, reduces stigma. And just we understand that the physical impacts the mental impacts the physical. So they have to talk to each other. So for us, our big hypothesis is if you build a new healthcare system, one that is integrated, collaborative, and focused on outcomes, that we'll have better people. And so we've been around since 2017, started in Arizona, and then have since gone to across the American Southwest, so Utah, New Mexico, and Colorado. And then within the last quarter, we've actually expanded over to the East Coast. So we now have Florida too. So we're kind of building out a national footprint. And then we're also looking at how do we expand services to different populations. So women's health, pediatrics, so that more people get the care that they need where they should get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's so tough too, because, you go through and you just don't know where to go, and you think your primary care, and your primary care is like, I have no idea. I don't want to touch it. Anything inside that brain, you got to go figure it out. It's not, I'll take an x-ray, but that's it. And so it's a really neat model. But you do some cool stuff with your leadership team. You do this thing called the Jeffersonian dinner. Is that right? Okay. You love this. I've seen your posts about it. Tell me about this. I have no idea what these are.
Yeah, so Jeffersonian dinners. So Thomas Jefferson used to get luminaries and leaders of the time together for deep conversations around a single topic. And so Jeffersonian is getting 8 to 10 people around the table, picking a topic or a prompt, and then folks going really deep on that. The rules of Jeffersonian is that one person speaks at a time and everyone's focused on that. So we've done Jeffersonian dinners as a leadership team on a number of topics, but I think the two that really helped us understand each other was where do your values come from and how they show up in your life today. So that was a big one. And then one that we did at the beginning of this year, which was really fascinating, was tell us about a time you disappointed someone in your life and what you learned from that. And so having those deep conversations with the people you work with every day, you learn so much about how they show up. You learn things around your coworkers of like, this is why they have an interesting relationship with money. It's like, well, their parents went bankrupt when they were kids. So they've always thought about that, which is why they're so focused on the finances of the company. It's like, oh, having that context makes it makes so much more sense why you ask the questions that you do. And having those deep conversations with your leadership team, it only makes us like stronger and also makes us go further faster. Like we truly trust each other because of interactions like that. And if any of your listeners or any of your teams want to do a Jeffersonian, my favorite thing is to facilitate those. I love being in the rooms where people kind of have aha moments about the people that they've known for years, and you get to pull something out of like, oh wow, I had no idea that's why you show up the way that you do. It's so powerful.
Now, do you do it over dinner? Is it like a private dinner?
Yes, it's usually over dinner. It takes about two, depending on the size of the group, 2 to 3 hours, just because some people go like really deep, which is great.
Wow.
Like I don't think I've been to a Jeffersonian when someone has not cried. And it's always the person that you like wouldn't think would be crying, but like, yeah. Oh yeah. Our one I did for the executive team, like within 5 minutes, everyone was crying. It was so good.
That's awesome. I mean, that's impact. You're definitely developing the relationship for sure.
Yeah.
Eye-opening.
I know you've written about like that. It's kind of a perfect segue into clarity, connections, and capital, which I'm sure are a part of those Jeffersonian dinners quite a bit. What would you say? I mean, with business owners or even frontline managers all the way down to the individual contributor, with those three areas, if you're struggling with them, it's a loaded question because they're three, separate areas. But I love that you isolated those because I hadn't seen them isolated before. Yeah. But if individuals and organizations are struggling there, what are some of the ways you help them kind of peel back and go through? Well, first one is clarity, to really identify those and how they can actually make movement and get unstuck or actually get momentum.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand like where they are and where they're trying to go. So asking just the key questions of like what's, what like I do think a big question is like what information that you need to get to that next step and what exactly is the next step. I think oftentimes people like don't think about the small steps that get you to the end goal. I had a CEO that was really great about saying like after this meeting, what is the immediate next step? It's not what's the strategy. It's like the immediate next step is I need to email Steven about this thing. And so when you ask people like where do you need to be unstuck? It's like, what is the immediate next step? And that opens up an aha. It's like, oh, all I need to do right now is to get a meeting with XYZ. It's like, cool. That's all you need for this point, and then we can figure out what's the end goal and go from there. So I think asking the right questions there, and also just depending on how people like synthesize information, just being in a room and letting them talk. Like my CEO, Eric, is great about just being like, hey, you don't need to do anything with this. I just need to talk it out. Like I just need to say this. And say, okay, cool. I'm here to listen. And then in his mind, he like figures it out himself. And he's like, that's all I need, man. So just understanding like what people need and then using that, and also understanding like how you synthesize information. For me, it's literally just writing it all out. And it's like, oh, this is what I understand what I need there. Or if it's for you, just talking it out, or it might just be reading, like understanding how you get unstuck and then asking your questions of like, what is the immediate next step I need in this?
Yeah, it's simple, not easy though, right?
Yeah.
When we break it down like this, it's like to actually take the action to isolate and have the space to figure out what that thing is, and then not justify something else to take over in priority. Yeah, I love that.
Also, I think what people don't do, especially busy professionals like all of us, is like I actually set blocks on my calendar for strategy or clarity time. So it's like this is an hour in my day or an hour in my week where I'm just thinking through problems. Like if you look at my desk right now, just a bunch of Post-its of like I need time to not be focused on email or anything else in the office, just be. And a lot of people just are doing that within like they're trying to do it between meetings or like between. It's like no, you have to have a block on your calendar where you're doing nothing but thinking through how you're going to solve a problem. Like you have to.
Yeah, time blocking is absolutely.
Again, it's easier said than done, right? Like totally. It's so hard to do.
It's a discipline. And it's a hard thing because it doesn't seem like a disciplined activity. But
there's so many distractions.
There's so many distractions.
There's email, there's social media, there's so many distractions coming your way. It's hard to just literally block it out and focus on that task at hand. Yeah.
And I think what we've gotten really good at as a leadership team is actually respecting that time. It's like we have our like daily stand-ups every day, 30 minutes, and that's like a do not move. And at first people are like, how are we going to do this? What if I haven't, like, since we've implemented it, it's never moved. Everyone's on it all the time. And so once you just kind of respect each other's calendar of like strategy time, do not book over, strategy time, do not disturb, people are like, all right, I know that's his time that he needs to do those things. So I'm not even going to bother him on any of these things.
And they're obviously that valuable because they maintain the spot. It hasn't been shifted yet.
It hasn't been shifted.
Yeah.
No.
Dude, do any of your meetings ever start late or go late, or is everything like on time? Like, I feel like you've got it so dialed in that it's like if you're late, then you're not coming in, and we're always going to end on time or early.
We're pretty good.
You're efficient.
Starting on time. Except, I mean, I've been really good, and because I used to be like super rigid. And my coach is like, shit happens. Like, people have stuff. So it's like, okay, cool. As long as there's like a valid excuse of like why someone's coming late, but usually our meetings end on time or end early. I put a pretty good agenda together, but also coaching. Like, I think the best coaching I could do is teach people how to be like very succinct. It's like, hey, is that something that we really need to know? Or like, what are the 2 to 3 things I need to know from this information, and then go. So we've actually implemented, it's kind of the big brother of EOS called Pinnacle. So it's like EOS to the next level. And it's been great. It's been, our meetings have been even more efficient. Sometimes we get out of them like way earlier than we ever would because we're focusing on all the right things in that moment, in that meeting. And Pinnacle has been amazing.
That's awesome. I'll have to look at that. I haven't heard of Pinnacle.
Yeah, I hadn't either. Just took a note on that myself. You just mentioned, mentoring your team to be more concise. That's just one area. And you talk a lot about mentorship in your content as well as just being in Junto. And I appreciated it because 2 summits ago, I just appreciated so much the direct feedback I got after my session from you. And it was an area of improvement, which is usually the feedback I like most is where were the gaps? What can I get? And I loved it out the gate, how refreshing it was. And you were spot on. You were just spot on. So I wanted you to kind of expand for our listeners. They're listening to this podcast. It's a form of mentorship, learning knowledge. Where do you see the most effective mentor-mentee relationships come from? And what should people be seeking in that relationship on either side?
Effective mentor-mentee. I think there's so many ways it can be effective. Where I've seen it be effective in my career, I had one, I think anyone who's like a boss or former boss. So I had a former boss early on in my career, Howard Paley, Howard is 30 years older than me, who was a boss. And then I left the company, and then we just kept in touch, and he became a mentor. And now I would say we're kind of like peers to each other. And he's been like a great sounding board throughout my career. He's always been a reference. He's just like a good guy with a lot more experience than I have. And so that was someone I just respect. So I think the number one thing would be you have to respect the person. Someone who has different experience than you, like someone that you admire and you like want to get there. But I think the biggest thing is like someone that's going to kind of be very, very candid with you on feedback, right? So you want them to be loving and supportive, but you also need them to be like, hey, you shouldn't have done that. And I love that when a mentor or a coach is like, you knew better. Why did you do that? Like, help me understand why you did that. Like,
accountability,
the accountability. Like, that's the best thing that a mentor could do.
100%. Someone you don't want to let down, right?
That's great. Like someone you don't want to let down. Yeah.
Because I've been in the situation too where my coaches have become my friends, and it changes the dynamic on everything. It's still people that I don't want to let down, but there's almost this specific item where I know that I'm working on it. That has to be the focus. And if this person's helping me with it, I want to show up to their next interaction with evidence that I was listening and taking action.
Yeah.
And that, I love that because that's the thing. Some people can get into a coaching relationship where, sounding board is helpful, but there has to be an energy exchange of accountability for it to make the time worth it.
I think accountability is a big one. I have a great executive coach. His name's David, and he's the one that is always good at calling me out. He's like, you do better. Let me unpack, or let us unpack like why you did that in the moment. It's like, well, I was probably like pretty stressed or overwhelmed, or like I just need to get it out. And it's like, all right, what are we going to do to make sure that you check that on the front end? And he's always good about calling me on my shit. And that's why I love him. Like, it's great.
That's awesome. So back to creative, right? You're like a writer for Forbes. You've got a lot of accolades here. I think we need to hit this home because you're a writer for Forbes, you're Titan 100, 40 under 40, you're a speaker, you go all over the country and speak about mental, like we haven't even tapped into the amazing things that you do and like the awards you've won and all sorts of stuff. So, but start with the writing and the Forbes, like how did you even get into that world to be on the...
Yeah, I would say all of those things are candidly like, one, yes, it's me, but we also have just like a really good PR team.
Yeah.
So I got into the Forbes. Forbes has like a subsidiary called Forbes Jobs, which talks about like careers and everything, and got involved with them because of our PR team was like, this guy writes, and they were like, okay, cool. And same thing with like a lot of the awards. I'm very honored to be part of all those things, but at the end of the day, it's like, who can write a good application and like who knows who? I think that's why I like before I got 40 under 40, I was like, okay, sure. Because some of the names are like whatever, like they work for this company, of course they got it. And so I mean they're great accolades, do not get me wrong, but I would not have everyone put like as much emphasis as they do, because at the end of the day, like, no offense, if you work for like an Avnet or an SRP, you're probably going to get it, right? So you just have a lot of a good team. You have a good team behind you. So great accolades, but like I wouldn't stress those too much.
I find this interesting because part of my notes was you're helping push for people with the discomfort of self-promotion. Yes. and you actually pushing me on it, and here we are.
You're uncomfortable
being humble.
No, I think, by the way, I'm not uncomfortable with it. I just think everyone should be like, it is what it is. Like I'm very proud of the accolades. They've helped me go further in just like the rooms I can be in. But it's also, you got to know that like at the end of the day, it's people on the other end that either know you or don't, and they're judging you. But
do people need to know that, Sentari? You won the awards, man. Like, do they need to know how it actually happened? You did. Speaking of what Phil's talking about, you did a session for us at our summit, and you said one of the takeaways, like, come up with your brag list, like especially with your customers or people you're talking to. Like, it's okay to tout yourself and how good you are against the competition. Like, don't feel weird about it.
I think
self-branding is a big thing for you.
I teach my direct reports because a lot of people are like really uncomfortable with self-promotion. That's the only way I think that the great or sad state of affairs of us as a corporate country, which is you're only going to get ahead by the people you know or by how you brand yourself, right? So to the point we were saying earlier, the awards have definitely helped, right? Like I've been able to get into rooms or be able to speak or just there's an extra layer of kind of validity to it. But I wish more people bragged about themselves. And like I think a lot of people, depending on how you were raised or like just what you've been told, it's like you shouldn't talk about that. But someone else is going to do it, and that person is going to get the award, or they're going to get the job, or they're going to get the client. So you need to be on that.
And I think the biggest
thing
from
the Midwest, that's not how it's almost the brand of the Midwest is to not do that.
Well, and I think the biggest takeaway is, do you want other people to share the perception of you, or do you want to tell people who you are and you brag about what you're doing and capable of or whatever? Yeah. Like if you're going to be like, it's you're selling, we're all in sales. Like people buy from people,
right?
And it's through the relationship, and they've got to know who you are. You can't help anybody if they don't know who you are. And so you got to have those conversations and tell people what you're up to, but doing it in not an obnoxious or arrogant way you have to be elegant with it, right? You can't be brash, right? You've got to be able to state the facts without being too pretentious in a way. And like, and you're a master at it.
That. I like what you talked about, which is just like, you want to control the narrative, right? Yeah. Like you want to drive what people say about you. But I think for me, I would say one of the things I'm more proud of in like my brand is like how I treat my people. And I think that's comes through on social media. Is like my team knows that my number one goal is to make sure that they're supported in their careers. They know that I have their backs on anything, and I'm going to be their biggest advocate and support. And like, that's something that like people know about. Like, that's where people are like, oh, I would love to go work for Sentari because of those things. I push my team. I always hold them to a high level of expectation, but I'm also their biggest support. So those are the things that I like want to be known for. And those are kind of the things I push out. Like, how do you support teams? How do you level up in a way that pushes people to be the best without also burning them out? Like those are the things that are most important to me.
This is a perfect progression because the three of us and the expanded group have been talking so much about core values lately, almost to nauseum, which is important and whatnot. But the amount that we've talked about it, I know that one of yours is, if it's not the one, is social impact, and
Yes.
that's not just your team; that is the collective, and
Yes.
it's so aligned with everything that you're putting out and how you communicate in every interaction. That social impact is, well, I don't want to speak for you if it's the thing or not. I know it's up there. And so all of this that you're doing, some people could call that just being a good leader and how your team is performing. But you look at it much more than that, the ripple effect of their interaction in not only the company, but the community too. Is that an accurate statement, or how do you view that?
Yeah, I love that you've kind of called that out. The big thing for me with my team, and I was actually had a skip level with one of my department members.
Wait, hold on right there real quick. Skip level. Explain that. So for anyone who doesn't know what
skip level is when you meet with someone who either reports to someone under you. So
you're skipping the manager and going down. Yeah.
Skipping the manager.
Director to VP.
So I do that with every one of my team members at least once a month. We'll grab lunch, drinks, whatever they want, whatever they decide. And that helps me get a pulse on like what's happening in their lives, number one, and also helps me understand like their perception of the company. And it's great. And the things that I always push with my team is I want you to be in the community. Like you need to volunteer, you need to be on a board, you need to do something so that you're not just working your 8 to 5 and then going home and like not contributing to the community that we serve and the people that we know and love. And so I really support that. I let them have time during work to do that. Like that's super important to me. And that's something that's always been part of my life since I was in high school. So I've always volunteered, been on boards, have pushed a lot of my work into how do we best support like one, Phoenix, like I'm a native Phoenician. I love it here. I want to support this community, but even the communities that we serve at Evolve MD all over, we've done some stuff in Utah, Florida, and it's really important that your employees and the people that work for you just know that community engagement is so, so important. Like we have this great opportunity and the means to support those that need us. So we should.
How many boards are you on now?
Bamboo Banger.
I would say
carry the two.
I think it's 6. I usually am on like about 5 or 6 boards, and I love it. It's a great work.
What's that entail, man? Like, is that like monthly, quarterly type meeting? Like, what is?
It depends on the organization. Like Goodwill, I'm on the Goodwill of Arizona board, and technically the Goodwill of San Francisco board because we just acquired them. So that's a pretty intense board just because it's Goodwill of Arizona is the largest nonprofit in Arizona. It's about a $300 million organization. So that's very intense. To some that are just kind of like quarterly board members or board meetings, like social venture partners. So I luckily have such a flexible and like open schedule that I've kind of been able to blend. I always think about like work-life blend or work-life harmony or not work-life balance. So like my professional, social life have always kind of intertwined. And so I just kind of make it work. And I realize that that's kind of a privilege that I have, but it's something that I've always had as a kind of a top of mind thing for me.
And that integration of your personal efforts, and you've obviously evolved MD and like what you're doing there and all that, like that's all gravy, and it just brings more awareness to everything that you're doing, right? And that goes back to the self-branding, like Sentari. What is Sentari up to? And it's this, and this, and so you've done some speaking engagements, and you travel around the country, and we've had conversations about that, like getting on stages, is kind of spreading awareness and whatnot. Talk about that. Do you prepare? Is it kind of like autopilot for these types of things now, or are you each one different? How do you feel when you get up on stage and have these conversations?
Great question. For like the first time I build out like a conversation or deck, the first time is actually pretty nerve-wracking. So I did one on how do teams get through conflict, and that was like the first time I've ever done it. And that was I think I did all right. But the one that I've done a lot of is like the business case for mental health, like why leaders should care about mental health, and that's pretty much on autopilot. Like I know like I'm pretty good, and I think. People always ask, like, are you nervous every time you get on stage? And the answer is yes. Like once I'm in it, I'm pretty comfortable. But like that minute or two before you get up there, I'm like, yeah, been doing this for years, I'm always nervous. And the same thing, like I'm our media spokesperson. And so I'm on like TV a lot. And my mom's always like, are you nervous when you go on? I was like, every time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to say something stupid or I'm going to mess this up. But yeah, I'm pretty nervous every time, but I usually get through it.
Well, I think it's you're nervous because you care, right? It's not so much so that you don't want to. You just want to make it. You want to help people. You want to make a good impression. You want to make sure the message gets across well. Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
With that schedule, and a lot of us in the circle travel a lot, but you are up there on the jet setting and on the move for both personal and professional. What are Sentari's musts for travel? And this could be items that you're taking with you,
that's a good question.
or conditions when you're flying. The way you have it dialed down, getting your workouts in. What are the must-haves or must-not-haves for travel schedule?
You alluded to it already, which is I usually pick a hotel based on gym. So usually got to pick a place where I can see. You can go online and like see what equipment they have, or I always travel with the jump rope. And then also now, like any city that has like I was just in Dallas for 4 days, they have a Barry, so I was able to just kind of like pop over and do the normal workout I would. So actually, number one is like, where am I going to work out? That's big. What are the other must-haves? Gosh, that's probably the big one. Typically at night, I like to like sit down like at the bar, like hotel bar, and just like get through email. Like if I have my headphones in with a beer, like I can crush work in an hour. So usually like someplace with a good hotel bar. But those are the big ones. It's like, where can I work out and where can I have like a drink at the end of the day to just kind of like get through stuff.
What's your go-to cocktail, Sentari?
Go-to cocktail is typically a dirty gin martini. Okay. Like I love a dirty gin martini. Yeah. I will say on the other piece of travel is like I used to be like Mr. Southwest. Like I love Southwest. But now I don't love it as much. So I've moved to American.
Oh man, it's the companion pass has got me with Paula and I, but it's definitely not it's different than it was when they created us as fans, though, for sure. But
yeah, for sure.
Still, I'm hanging on for dear life as a Southwest guy, but we're falling down.
Sentari, did I see that you recently got your first tattoo? Is this true?
I did. I did.
You got it.
I've been like Mr. Anti-tattoo for no other reason than like I just was like, oh, that's not for me. So I was kind of judgmental about people with tattoos, to be honest. And then I sit on the State 48 Foundation, and we did a tattoo fundraiser. And I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it for like a cause that I love. And
you're going to go all in, man. Tattoo. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's like, it's going to be addicting. And I was like, I don't think I'll get another one. But it's a little like scape of Arizona, like the mountains, that I got on my leg. And it's like one, an ode to like, I love Arizona. And two, I was happy to support the organization. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not like, do you guys have tattoos?
I've got one. Phil,
I've got a number and I have quite a few. Yeah.
You wouldn't notice. He wears a polo. He wears a polo and you can't see a single one, but as soon as
okay.
Yeah. So it's funny because
they were strategic, Sentari. They were strategic.
I love that.
Sentari, I think we're going to see you at next summit. You're going to be all sleeved up and having tats all over the place now that you're.
I don't think that's going to happen.
So my wife does a lot of the shopping for me. Most of my drawers are filled with like high school basketball shorts and, Abercrombie and Fitch and Structure and whatever. I just don't shop for myself. So she has to keep me like in line with the up and up of fashion. And she buys these short shorts like that's what's in, right? Like you're showing off your thighs. And I keep telling her, you buy me shorter shorts, I'm getting a thigh tattoo, and it's going to be something ridiculous. So I've only got the one. I got it 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago, and I'm itching a little bit to get another one. So it does. It is, but it's always got to mean something, right? And just like for you, it's always got to mean something. It meant something for you. And I know Phil's tattoos.
In the first couple years of our corporate careers, Stephen and I had a wager going on. Would have been the worst idea in history.
Oh, it would have been
over
brutal.
A football game. They at least got to choose their own team, but with the football season outcome, one of us was going to get a tattoo, and we looked back like,
oh god,
I can't believe we almost did that. I don't think Stephen was very anti-tattoo at that time.
I was,
anyway.
I was like, I'm not getting anything unless it means something to me. I mean, that doesn't mean a lot. It did back then, though. We were raging fans, but that's awesome. Well, now you're a part of the club, the tattoo club.
I'm part of the club.
Yeah,
I'm part of the club.
And I feel like this conversation could go on for another couple hours. But I am really curious about, we're always curious. If you have a guest on, you care and you want to know, but this one's really, I've been curious since we booked you on and nailed you down for the podcast. And it's the question we ask everybody, kind of the basis and foundation ethos of the podcast is defining success for yourself. And I'm really curious how Sentari Minor defines success, or if there is one.
I always go back to, it's something that I've always put in my bio, which is like, I love bringing the best out of people and organizations. So success is like, if people around me are doing well, and the organization that I'm working for supporting is doing well, then that's successful. I've never thought about it from a like, yes, I want to pay my bills, but like I never think about success from a lens of money, because money comes and goes, but like how you show up for people and how people remember you is super important. And I just wanted to be known as like, that guy helped me get to the next level, or that guy helped our company get to the next level. So if I'm doing that, then I'm successful.
Dude, that's legacy.
Clear and
right
concise.
there.
What a surprise.
Yeah. Right. Great answer, Sentari. As we wrap up, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you or read some of your stuff that you put out some great stuff on LinkedIn. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, easy way to get in touch with me is just to go to LinkedIn, Sentari Minor. I also have a website, sentariminor.com, or just Google me. Like I'm the only Sentari Minor in the world, so just Google my name and you'll find my stuff.
Did you know if someone Googles my name, it's the guitarist for Iron Maiden? So at least you got that. Anyone can find you.
That's a tough coolness comparison.
I know. So you will find the Sentari Minor when you Google him. You may not find me if you Google Stephen Harris. But I love it. Thank you so much for hopping on, man. This was a lot of fun. Great conversation.
Awesome, guys.
Knew it would be.
You're definitely making us better, so thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Sweet. This is great. Thanks, guys.